FinTechTalk, the live webinar with no presentations, no PowerPoint, just talk.
Hello and welcome to FinTech Talk. I'm your host, Charles Orton-Jones. Today we're discussing KYC, in particular perpetual KYC, whether it can reduce time and cost. This is a subject that affects every bank, and to nail the issue, we've invited two of the world's leading experts on perpetual KYC. So without further ado, let's meet our panel. First, we have Denitsa Roubain. Denitsa is a sanctions compliance officer with one of the world's most major banks. Denitsa, we've agreed not to mention the bank because you're speaking in a personal capacity, but it is also the host of the Compliance Time podcast, which you'll find on Spotify, on iTunes, and if compliance touches your job in any way at all, that is the podcast to listen to. Denitsa, welcome to FinTech Talk. Perhaps you could just say a few words about yourself and your role.
Of course. First of all, thank you, Charles, for the invite. It's a pleasure to be on FinTech Talk today. I am in sanctions, working with sanctions since 2019, and before that, I was working in AML, and since 2020, I'm the voice behind Compliance Time. So I'd be happy to discuss further. Anyone who's interested in, talking with me about my experience and the podcast in general.
Fantastic. And joining us also is Harish Chandran, who is Director of Global KYC at Mitsubishi UFG. MUFG is the biggest bank in Japan. So you can imagine the amount of expertise that Harish has. Harish, if you switch your camera on, we will say hello. Harish, hi. Perhaps you could just tell us something about, you're coming through loud and clear. Harish, just tell us about your role at MUFG.
Sure, thanks. First, I won't talk specifically about MEFG, but overall, 22 years in the banking sector, and for the last 8 to 10 years fighting financial crime. That's where the expertise lies.
Fantastic. So great to have you both with us. Now, perpetual KYC is really an evolving field, and there's a news story that we'll pull up that, in summary, I think states what they usually call the bleeding obvious, which is that RegTech is the only way of doing this. The manual processes are not going to cut it. You're going to need to invest in cutting edge technology to handle KYC these days. Everyone kind of knows it, but doing it well is difficult. But Harish, perhaps you could just kick this off by telling us, really what is perpetual KYC and why is it different to the previous processes that went before?
So previously, the standard way of working KYC, right? You onboard a client, then you do periodic reviews. Then if there's an event which happens, we start refreshing the KYC. And finally, when the client exits, we do the exit formality. But what perpetual KYC is doing is basically trigger-based events, right? Based on any change which happens, we do the review. And that's not based on human interference, but more based on technology, using all different technology which is available in the market. Could be with the regulators, could be approved sources. We try using AI and try to build that is what perpetual KYC is. So I think the challenge or the whole process of perpetual KYC is still new. So we are all learning from it. So I think it's a long way to go till it evolves.
Fantastic. And Denitsa, is that generally your analysis as well? And in particular, what are the tools at the heart of this to get good at perpetual KYC? What sort of expertise are people going to need?
Yes, I agree with everything what Harish said, but for me also perpetual KYC is like maintaining a nice lawn and all the plants on it. So you can do that based on an event that happens. Let's say each week you have to water your plants, but what if you do it not based on that event that you have scheduled, but you make sure that maintain your lawn and pull out the weeds and things not based on the event that you have scheduled in your calendar, but based on some kind of behavior, like you see your plant is drooping, maybe it needs water more often than than in a week. So that's how I see perpetual KYC and its ability to shift the industry from event-driven and scheduled reviews based on risk towards behavior or different factors taking into account reviews with the perpetual KYC. Now, I usually when you hear perpetual KYC, you think that constant monitoring of the client. I don't think it should look like this, especially that most of the bank clients are legitimate and good people, not the financial criminals, which are smaller in percentage but do larger harm than that. And sorry, what was the second part of the question? Because I focused on my law.
Yeah, just the kind of skills people are going to need. Just give people a heads up. I mean, AI and ML get talked of a lot in this. Is that the essence of perpetual KYC?
Yes, in essence, it is the automation, but I don't think that it would help solve all the issues because for me, there is a combination of three parameters to have a good anti-financial crime, in which includes a KYC program. So you need good policies and procedures because without the good policies and to teach the AI what it should do and how, you won't be able to have a good perpetual KYC. There is a lot of talk about data. I'm going to even skip that and I'm going to focus on the risk appetite and the policies and procedures. And the other thing is to have experienced people that can navigate through the regulatory changes, through all the different nuances that different KYC profiles and the business in general can bring to the know your customer process.
Fantastic. Harish, you talk about events triggering perpetual KYC. What sort of events? I mean, if someone moves house, how does the bank know?
So it's not only as simple as someone moves a house, right? So I'm sure, so there's a director change in a corporate structure and they have to automatically report it to a regulator. So when that happens or that database gets updated, it should automatically come into any of the banks so that they are able to update the system automatically so that we are looking at real-time data. We are not looking at data which is 1 year old based on some other information which was uploaded somewhere else. We are looking at real-time data, and that's going to help us build the best KYC. So then we don't need people manually sitting and searching and trying to find out if there's been a change in somebody moving here or there.
Fantastic. And just tell us about the motivation here. I mean, banks need to make money. Is this entirely down to cost, or is it just, there are a number of other benefits as well?
See, the truth is criminals are getting smarter, right? And we need to get smarter than that. So it's the way of making sure that the risk is limited and at the best, we are giving the clients the best usage of whatever resources we have. If we do not know them well enough, we are not able to give them the best services. So as simple as that. So it's risk is one part of it, but client service is also another thing which we can look at.
Fantastic. And Denitsa, how much of this is demanded by regulators?
I don't think someone has yet set out perpetual KYC in the demands for monitoring. However, I think they would appreciate the knowledge because we have seen failures within organizations when risk scoring has not been appropriately done. So a high risk client is labeled as a low risk client. Oftentimes that results in regulatory findings and usually fines. So I would say that although it's not mandated, you have to address these issues that arise from incorrect risk scoring, for example.
Okay, fantastic. And Harish, I know you probably can't talk too much about, Mitsubishi UFG itself, but just give us a clue as to some of the ways this is conducted. I mean, let's talk about, in-house development versus third-party services, but in particular, what kind of technologies are at the heart of perpetual KYC?
So I won't talk about MUFG in specific, but when I look at what kind of technology we see, we all have different vendors coming up. There's a lot of conversations on how we can build the best resource. But frankly, according to me, there's no one shop fits all or a one size fits all. You cannot get a vendor who says that this is the best perpetual KYC tool because each firm has their own way of working it. So what can we do? So each firm they might have their in-house tools which they're working, or they might be taking a standalone system from the market, right? But most of this information is available in your webs, your sources, there's a lot of external sources. And if we are able to build the API tools and build it into our bank systems, that's the best way of approach. Then we are getting regular data flow coming from those external sources into our system, and that keeps our systems up to date. And that's the best way to do it. So it's not that we have vendor, an application which is there in the market which you can just buy it, sort out all the issues. That's not the way we go, and it's still new. Like I always said, it's new. We are still learning from each of our experiences.
Fantastic. We got a great question already from the viewers. Christina Hembling and Denitsa asks, where are the limitations or risks associated with relying so heavily on these technologies for perpetual KYC? I mean, we're sold perpetual KYC as all upside. Where are the limitations and risks?
I would say number one is understanding what's behind the technology, because most often when the regulators come and probe anything related within the technology, transaction monitoring, KYC, sanction screening, they want to understand how that technology performs it. So I think number one thing when you're implementing any kind of technology is making sure that you as a compliance officer or somebody in charge of that understands how it works and if it fits and covers all the specificities within the financial institution or a financial firm that you're representing.
Fantastic. Harish, what's your take? I mean, on sort of limitations and risks.
So the limitations, see, what happens is typically right now everything is data driven with what the information we have. We are not looking at it like a preventive tool. We are building everything. Sorry, we are building everything as a preventive tool, not a predictive tool. If we are able to build a tool which can predict where financial crime is going to happen, that is where we would like to be. We are not in that state. So right now it's only trial and error. We are trying to get to a solution, but we haven't got the solution.
Fantastic. Perhaps we can just delve into what this is a solution to. I mean, Harish, you mentioned that criminals are becoming more sophisticated. I mean, what's causing you headaches? In what way are they becoming more sophisticated?
Not particularly KYC, but I can give you a very good example of fraud, right? You do not know where fraud comes. We can start building multiple tools saying that, okay, today there's going to be a credit card fraud in a particular country. You cannot predict it. But by looking at the various fraud trends which are happening and getting built into the system, we are able to predict that, okay, these are the countries which are potential fraud. These are the countries which you could have the next big thing happening there. So that's something which is as simple as that. Put all the data into a tool, and when they can able to predict it, that's when we'll have a solution. Right now, it's all preventive. We are getting all the information and we are trying to see what can we do. But as we evolve, we will come to that state.
Fantastic. And Denitsa, just talk to us about what is this we're trying to achieve here. I mean, what sort of behaviors are we trying to root out?
Well, I think the main objective is keeping the criminals away, the criminal behavior from outside of the bank. So through it's all integrated, it's all connected. You cannot have just KYC necessarily indicative for criminal behavior, because it has to be paired probably with transaction monitoring. It may be paired with sanction screening if the let's say the person is located or entity is located in a sanctioned jurisdiction. So I think on its standalone, KYC is what it is. It's know your customer, understand what they do, who they are, where they're located. That's the ultimate goal, and know it in the best way is to be efficient in terms of having less friction with the clients, because the objective of the bank is not to be compliant, it's to have clients and to service their clients, and a financial institution in general, not only a bank. And second of all, is also be compliant with all the regulations and have a proactive approach, so that the perpetual KYC is seen as being proactive, not reactive. And I think that that's the objective: service your clients, reduce the cost of compliance, which is through automations and maybe some kind of AI technology, machine learning, and make sure that you understand the way it works, so that you are also compliant with all the regulators, um, which are saying that you should not enable criminals to um, deal and have funds with your bank.
Fantastic. Speaking from position of ignorance, I'm just wondering how you measure your success here. I mean, KYC is such a tricky business because, in one sense, the more criminals you catch, I mean, is that because your systems are better, or there are more criminals? Harish, what do you think? How do you measure the success of your KYC processes?
I think the measurement is in how we do not fail. Because in case there is, a criminal which goes through the system, then we are a failure. But sometimes what happens is we might be doing hundreds and thousands of clients. We do the KYC properly, everything is done. That's fine, but that's not a measure of success. The measure of success is making sure that nobody comes through the system. So it's a tiring job, and you're talking about thousands of people doing it in multiple banks, right? But as far as we are able to make sure that there's no criminal who goes through the system, I think that's a success by itself.
Fantastic. And yeah, Denitsa, how do you measure success? Do you have sort of, I don't know, metrics, KPIs? How do you know if you're doing a good job?
Yeah, I think there should be metrics and KPIs, but those would largely depend, I think, on the role that you have in the process. So if you are in the onboarding team who is onboarding people and actually making sure that the due diligence is done, I would say that your KPI will be associated with the correctness of your records, of how well you maintain those records, and are they fully incorporated. But if you're creating policies for KYC, then your KPIs will be totally different. I think then your objective would be how well your policy is designed, and can it be followed in full from the other employees who are, working with that policy. And then you have the anti-financial crime professionals who are using the KYC, and they actually serve as a sort of a check on how the systems also work. You have quality related to that, and did it actually did that KYC actually detect the suspicious patterns that are there, the high risk jurisdictions that may be involved in transactional activity. I think KPIs largely would depend on where you're sitting and what's your role within the KYC. Are you user? Are you creating it? Are you designing the process?
Fantastic. And guys, while we're talking about automation, I mean, I'm hoping some people work for banks that still have manual processes and might be sort of, shamed into taking action. But can we confirm, Harish, manual processes have no place in KYC anymore, or do they? Are there some activities that you're thinking, no, we've tried to automate, but there's still a role for human beings? What do you think, Harish?
No, I don't think you could remove the role of a human being in a KYC process at this moment, right? It's very, very critical they look at it. There are a lot of mundane work which goes as part of doing a KYC profile, which can be removed. It could be copy paste, getting your data, downloading a document, checking the document and the information. Those are things which can be automated because there's a lot of manual effort which goes, manual time which goes in. I think at some point of time, you used to take around 30 to 40 hours to review a particular profile. So it's quite a lot of time which gets wasted. But we can obviously automate a lot of these small work which happens, but the final analysis will be done by a human to see if everything which is being done by the tool is all correct. It could be just a random go through, and they will be able to find out which is, and that's human, right? I think our intelligence cannot be questioned on that front, but there are things which we might not be able to see because the printouts are bad, the documents which have got downloaded is bad because KYC is a process which used to be completely paper driven. Then we are now automating it by putting it onto systems. So there will be some challenges, but I don't think the human element will go very soon.
So you're nodding away and agreeing. So my theory that everything should be automated, humanless bank, no.
No, I don't think so. I agree that there are a lot of terrible tasks that were in front of the employees working with KYC and documents collection. In the past 10 years, a lot of things were not yet automated, and people were collecting papers, and you were looking at the ID card that you scanned or the passport, and then you had to input or to validate the accuracy, like if it's a fake passport or not, and you have to manually type in some things in other systems. I think those are things that can be automated. But when it comes to renewal process, when it comes to inquiries to the client, I don't like robocalls, for example, from customer perspective. I don't want to be, chatting with some robot that doesn't give me immediately what I want and doesn't understand, for example, what my needs are. And vice versa, when some kind of renewal of my documents is needed or some kind of information, I wouldn't want that to be, let's say, via some robocall. I would like to have a request or somebody to talk to me, to explain to me what's happening. I think there is still a lot of roles. Also, what Harish mentioned about the decision making and verifying what the tool did. This is crucial because we are not at the stage that AI is capable of making decisions. It can help you navigate and make the decision or sway your view from one point to another, but I don't think it's capable of making the actual decision because it's not as easy as it looks like. It's not as black and white as we can talk right now about.
Fantastic. Let's just come to this issue of cost. Now, I hope people watching this are going to go to their board and say, perpetual KYC is where it's at. If we spend the money, we'll achieve results. We'll be more compliant. We'll catch more bad guys. And of course, the return on investment question will come up. It always comes up. Harish, how should people think about, cost savings with perpetual KYC? And if it's more automated, there should be fewer human actions, no matter what. So, how do you view the cost saving equation?
So they will be cost saves, right? They will be cost saves because you're marketing. But what the cost is giving you, the money which you're spending is giving you is better quality. And with better quality, we are making sure that the number of criminals are lesser, who's at least trying to get in through the system. So that is what you're getting at the end of it. So there is a cost, and sometimes these are costs which you might not see easily available, but the quality of work has gone up. We are doing a better job. Regulators are happy, at least with the banks, because there's always new requirements which come up, right? And manually, we might not be in a position to find out all solutions for that. So technology helps, definitely helps, and there's a cost attached to it. But in the longer run, that cost save will definitely help.
Fantastic. Yeah, Denitsa, how do you frame the cost equation?
If I'm going to the board and speaking about perpetual KYC, I would speak also about the benefits for the clients. That this would ensure that our clients will get less questions. They'll be having less back and forth because the tool that we are going to implement will help with this and this and this. Because the main objective of a financial institution is to provide services to their client, and they should do it compliantly with, if that's a word, in compliance with all of the regulations that they're subject to. For me, that's the ultimate goal, to provide a relevant service for the people and to make sure that you're doing that right. So I would also mention this, that there is a client point of view here that would help the conversation for budget and the cost.
Fantastic. Now, to our viewers, if anyone has a question, please use the platform to post it. You have two experts here waiting to answer your question. Harish, something I'm interested in is where is the most difficult aspect of this? I mean, with perpetual KYC, what has caused you the biggest annoyances and headaches?
I think it's technology, while it is definitely something which we are looking forward to, right? But at the same time, are we there? We are not there yet. So when we start building tools, there's a lot of things which we miss out. There are times when we do a trial run and we realize we are not getting the right download from the external source that we are paid for. We're not getting the right information in. Then we have to again get all manual intervention, try looking at all those documents. So there's a lot of learning which is part of this exercise, right? And as
Mm.
we learn and we try to, while it's easy to just say, just connect the technology and it should all work, but sometimes it's not. So there's a lot of UAT which happens. And once we get all that right, we do it in piecemeal basis. It cannot be that one day we just shut shop and say that we are going to go completely AI or machine learning. It cannot happen that way. It is a lot of experiments which go through, and it takes a lot of time. And some of my experience over the last few years, it's taken 5 6 years before we actually get everything right. At least say 60% of it right.
Interesting. So I'm interested in this because how difficult are things? Jeff Bezos, in his Amazon newsletter, gave the analogy of a handstand. He said he had a friend who wanted to learn to do a handstand, tried it for 2 weeks, couldn't do it, hired a teacher, and the teacher said, no, this is a 6-month project. You've misunderstood. You're saying 5 to 6 years for a good perpetual KYC program.
No, I'm saying that's my experience because the technology was evolving, right? Now it could be a lot faster because we have learned and we are sharing our best practices across. It's various vendors which we tried. And right now, if you go into the market, I'm sure you're getting a lot of tools and a lot of software which is there, which is learned from all the mistakes we have been learning over the last 5 years, which was a tough phase. But now it's literally easy for them to implement.
So we plowed the furrow, so it's easier for everyone to catch up now. Yep, Denitsa, what do you think? If people are contemplating perpetual KYC, what can we forewarn them about? Where are they going to experience the biggest pain?
I said I'm going to leave the data last. I
Okay.
believe it was in your article that you shared in the beginning with us, Charles.
Yeah.
Data is the new oil. I think they refer to it like that, or if it wasn't with them, it was somewhere else where I saw that. I think one of the largest challenge with onboarding a new vendor in terms of regulatory technology, RegTech, or anything like that comes with aligning your data and legacy systems with what the vendor is providing. So I would say those are the challenges, and you should make sure that you have your data input in order, because one of the most common saying in the financial crime world is garbage data in, garbage data out. So if your data is not good, I don't think any sophisticated technology will really help solve that. You need to work on this and making the right policies and procedures to be in place for doing that.
Fantastic. Now we have another question from our viewers. It's the first part I really like. This is Jared Kumar. The second thing, maybe we've touched on, but what is the future of KYC? Perpetual's still getting embedded, but we always like to think what is a step beyond. Harish, is this too nuanced? What is KYC going to look like in 5 years' time? Is it just perpetual KYC evolved and iterated, or are there other ideas that are going to emerge?
Like I mentioned earlier, I think right now we are doing it more preventive, but 5 years down the line, we could be more predictive, right? We'll be able to identify where are the challenges which are going to come, and that should be the way forward. So with all the AI, with all the enhancement which is happening on the system, I think we will only evolve and we will only become better, and I think that's the way we should look at it.
And Denitsa, if you sci-fi travel 5-10 years ahead, what does KYC look like?
Yeah, I think there will be a lot of improvements that will be brought by AI into the KYC realm, because we know it's a crucial component of each anti-financial crime program, and it is the one that has a lot of deficiencies and issues from time to time, right? So I think there'll be a lot of efforts from regulators through new regulations such as Corporate Transparency Act, such as in the United States, and further in Europe. Probably there'll be more discussions trying to improve the landscape, and from there on, financial institutions and firms will likely lead the change towards more behavioral based approach towards KYC, as Harish was mentioning. But yeah, I think it will evolve. There will be changes, and yeah, I will be following this through the regulatory updates and what the financial institutions are doing.
Okay, I like to ask nosy questions, and I'm interested where you guys learn about KYC, because it's such a, most people, it's a very esoteric and particular discipline. Harish, when you want to discuss the future of KYC with people, who do you call? Is there I don't know, a podcast you listen to? Is there a sort of, I don't know, a sort of subreddit? Where do people go to become masters of KYC? Where do you go?
I think it's the experience. You just keep talking about it, talking. At some point of time, I used to manage around 500 people across, right? And you're talking about people who have seen work those profiles to understand what challenges they have. They are the best, right? You speak to your analysts, they know exactly what they're doing, and they know that, okay, they found this document that was just completely different from typically what they're looking at. They will call out the issues which you're seeing. They are the best to get the experience from. I also do a lot of reading online, just to understand what's the new technology, what are the new enhancements which are happening. Because what something in the KYC space, frankly, is that people do not talk much amongst each other. I'm talking about regulators across different continents, right? If you look at our space right now, every regulator have their own preferences of policies and procedures for their region. They're not talking about global still. They're still talking regional, and they're talking country wise. And that is a challenge. So it's always interesting to read something which is happening in America, something happening in Asia. It's something new which happens. But the future of KYC will be at a point where all this gets sorted out and we look at it globally, not bank versus bank, but basically all banks and all financial institutions against the criminals. And that should be the way we look at it rather than looking at it, okay, is this bank up to date or that bank up to date?
Fantastic. Yeah, and same question to you, Denitsa. I mean, you're an expert on this, but how did you become an expert, and where do you go? Where can you recommend our viewers go?
Well, thank you for saying
podcast, for sure.
Thank you for saying that. I am not as much in the KYC space, but when I need to inform myself about it, I oftentimes check the reports and information produced by the teaching associations, such as the ACAMS and the Association of Anti-Financial Crime Specialists, ACFCS. They make fantastic webinars and PDF documents and resources where you can learn more about KYC. But I really agree with what Harish said, that people don't really talk about it as much as they should. And maybe another source where you can learn more is the FinCEN website, because they are the ones who maintain a lot of rules and informations about KYC. And then probably local regulators when it comes down to regulations of this sort. For podcasts, yeah, it's hard to say, really. I was trying to think of the ones that I'm listening to, but I cannot think of one that's more KYC oriented.
Okay. No, it is. It's fascinating because it is, such a fast evolving subject, and yeah, the reputation of the bank is at stake. I mean, it really is in the front line in combating criminal activities, and yet people assume it's a formulaic thing. Whereas I think what we've learned is that it's a remarkably creative art, and it requires a lot of expertise and yeah, cutting edge technologies such as machine learning in its most advanced form. That's fantastic. Perhaps just to end, I always like to ask our panel for something a little bit unexpected. I like to give our viewers homework, which is something to research. But can you mention, maybe, Harish, either a fintech company that you think our viewers would enjoy knowing about, or even else, maybe a trend you think they ought to go and check out after this episode has ended? What springs to mind?
I wouldn't talk about any fintech firm as such because I've been working with 4 to 5, and each of them they have their own USPs, right? And each stands out on their own. But so I won't call them out, but I think it wouldn't be fair for me to recommend and say that this is the best one of the lot. It's not fair. But I think there's a lot of changes which are happening in the KYC world, right? And it's like you just go to Google, put KYC, put AI, you get a lot of articles, and it's beautiful to read through it, especially if you're part of the financial crime world. I would request everyone to do that. Just put in financial crime, put AI, you get beautiful articles from some of the top banks, some of the top audit firms. You name them, they're trying to do some real good stuff, and that's going to inspire you because you know that you're in the right space doing the right thing.
I think it's right. And I mean, as an industry, KYC is remarkably kind of open with its learnings. I've noticed some of the big consultancies, the big
True.
banks, very, very happy to share what they've learned. It's not proprietarial at all. It's a very kind of pro-social ethos. Is that right, Harish?
True, and I think like I said, right, what we learned in the last 5 years, people are now everybody is on top of it. Now, what we are trying to do together is build the next say 30-40% of innovation within the KYC world. So and that's where we are, and I think they're pretty happy to share saying their success stories because it'll help them build a better world around. Especially for the banks, there's a lot of cost to it. There's a lot of fight. The banks are not supposed to be just fighting financial crime, right? Or they need to give better customer service. And at the end of the day, that's what we are, making sure that we are able to give the best customer service at the same time, we are able to build a better world for tech and make with minimal financial crime.
Fantastic. And
If not any.
Denitsa, give our viewers some homework. What should they go off and research? Either a fintech or a trend. What springs to mind?
Yeah, so I was positively impressed. Recently, I spoke on a conference in Sofia, and I learned about the FinTech Pay Safe. I think it's worth to take a look. I think that some fantastic work in terms of their onboarding and how they adapted to the changes. So that's my fintech recommendation. Otherwise, there are some very interesting podcasts also in the space of anti-financial
Oh, we've just
crime.
lost Denitsa for a second. Okay. Denitsa, do we have you?
In the space which are oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we lost the last 20 seconds or so, but go ahead, you're back.
What was the last thing? I'm sorry, because I spoke quick.
That's right, just keep going, Denitsa, you're okay.
Oh yeah, apologies for there is some interruption with the connection. Yeah, I was just mentioning about a conference that I attended, and I was positively impressed about the company PaySafe, which is a fintech, and it has very interesting adaptation and model on onboarding customers. So that's the fintech that I would ask viewers to check out. And for podcasts, I was talking about the dark money files as well as ACAM's podcast that's produced has also very interesting topics, not only on the KYC but on the anti-financial crime space in general.
Okay, fantastic. Well, then it's Harish, thank you so much for your time. This is a tricky subject for many people, KYC. They hear about it, but expertise is short on the ground. So it's so good to have two people who know the subject inside out to share their insights. And you've corrected some of my misunderstandings too. So thank you so much. To our viewers, next week we have, again, 4 p.m. Tuesday, UK time, turning your investor onboarding from a regulatory checklist into a source of growth. Something that may be a new concept to many people, but fantastic subject. Again, we'll have a world-class panel for that. So I hope you can join us. And from me, from Denitsa and Harish, FinTech Talk, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Goodbye.
FinTech Talk, the live webinar with No presentations, no PowerPoint, just talk.